Welcome to Truly Terrified, Paranormal versus Physics, where we talk about some really weird stuff and Joe the scientist explains how it's not possible, or maybe it is. I'm Lynn and...
I'm Joe.
When I got my first home, which was an apartment, I discovered that if I moved the furniture around in, like, say, my living room, I found that new people would come into my social circle. Weird, but true. If I rearranged my kitchen cupboards or cleaned out my fridge, my health and eating habits changed. While this isn't strictly feng shui, I recognized a relationship between my home and the energy I attracted or produced. Later, I found out that a formalized method of doing this had existed for thousands of years and was called Feng Shui. Have you heard of Feng Shui?
Sorta. I know there's like books and stuff written about it.
Yeah, there's lots of stuff written about it. You don't hear much about it anymore, but it's still around and thriving. The basic principle of this practice is this. It's the practice of arranging things and pieces in your living spaces, like your home or your office or wherever you are, to create balance with the natural world. The goal is to harness energy forces and establish harmony between you and your environment. In ancient culture, this philosophy is called the Tao. Am I saying that right?
Yeah, sorta. I think the phoneme is halfway, sort of like halfway between D and T. So it's
Tao.
It's like a really hard
like Tao.
D.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Tao, which translates to mean the way. Taoism is the way of nature, and all the basic rules of feng shui reflect nature. So everything about feng shui, it all has to do with nature. There are 3 essential principles of feng shui. These rules seem really complicated, but they're really not. There's the commanding position, the bagua, and the 5 elements. All of it's meant to harness your chi, which is the vital life force or energy that we all possess, that everything possesses in the Asian culture. Like a large room with little furniture can cause an overwhelming of chi, making you feel lost or uncomfortable. And a small room that's packed with clutter doesn't give the chi space to move, resulting in feelings of, they said stagnation. I would say more like, for me, I'd be unable to think if I was surrounded by a lot of clutter. So the commanding position is the spot in the room that's the farthest from the door and not in direct line with it. It puts you diagonal to the door. The commanding position would be the place where you spend most of the time in that room. So when you come into a room, where you spend most of your time should not be in direct line of sight. It should be to one side or the other.
I wonder why not direct line of sight, and why furthest from the door?
I'm sure that if you were a student of feng shui, you would know that. I don't know that, but I think that it has
really
something to do with the way they say the way the energy travels.
Well, so I mean, it's really interesting that there's like different reasons for different things in esoteric belief systems, like you believe there's this flowing energy and whatever,
right.
and so you have a canonical reason why you should have it the thing farthest from the door or whatever. And then there's like a really pragmatic philosophic reason why, and there's usually some coincidence between those two.
Yeah.
I'm really interested in the more pragmatic reason. I'm sure there is one.
I think that, and I actually made a note about this because I think that there is a reason. When you consider how people came up with why things work a long time ago before they had science as we know it, they had practices that had results, but they didn't really understand why they got results. So they came up with reasons why they had results.
Yeah.
And so if you imagine, if you have an office and the door is directly in sight of your desk, when someone walks in, they immediately disturb you. And they know that when they walk in, they are going to immediately stop your process, whatever you're doing, and you'll pay attention to them.
Yeah.
That puts the power dynamic differently than if your desk was off to the side and they came in. You'd have a millisecond of warning that they were coming in. You could choose to ignore them and finish what you're doing, or to stop and acknowledge them. But I think that millisecond is enough for that power dynamic to be more balanced.
Mm-hmm. And just more generally, if you notice that it affects most people a particular way to have it a particular way, then, you know, you, like you said, you come up with a reason, maybe, you know, belief system, whatever. But you should definitely do the thing, even if there's no apparent reason why.
Right. That works.
Like, for instance, if your food looks good, it tastes better.
Yeah.
It's probably associative or whatever, but it doesn't matter the reason.
If it works.
If you just do it, then it tastes better, you know.
Right. Okay, so that's the commanding position, is what is in line of sight, or in their thinking, line of energy from the entrance to the space. So if it's your house, it would be your front door. If it's a room, it would be the door where you enter that room. You do not want your commanding position to be in direct line with that entry. It should be to one side or the other. So like in a bedroom, you don't want your bed, like, you know, there's your bed. You don't want it. You want it off to the side. If it's a desk, like I said about the office, you don't want it directly in front of the door. Although a lot of people do that.
Yeah, that is really interesting. Like you think of the stereotypical big man office.
Yeah.
The desk is huge and right in front of the door.
Right.
Long walk.
Right. But then that, you know, if you were going to buy into the chi thing, then you could say, well, that's a long walk for the energy to dissipate or something. I don't know. But in reality, I think it gives you that warning that this person is arriving, or maybe you have a secretary out there that does that interrupts that process. But in any case, that's what Feng Shui says. So that's your commanding position. And then, let me get back to where I was. You should have a clear line of sight from where you spend most of your time. And
the door. Oh, and the commanding position. Wouldn't that mean you would want a U-shaped room with the door on one end of the U?
Let's imagine a bedroom. So let's say your bedroom is completely square, and the entrance, there's your bedroom door, the entrance to the room, and you don't have your bed directly across from the door. You have your bed, let's say, to the right, against the wall that's to the right. And so from your bed, you can see the door. But when someone comes to your door, or
they see the thing that's off,
they would look straight ahead, and you would have that.
Seems to me like a cat naturally seems to gravitate to a place of concealment where they can see everything.
Yeah. So maybe we're just cats.
Well, think about it though. Imagine a big field, and then there's a little copse of trees, and it's like those bushes around the margins of the trees. Where do you want to be?
In the trees.
Exactly.
But there are people who prefer to be out in the big field.
But would they want to be just out in the middle of it or near the trees?
I don't know. I don't know how most people.
Or how about this? Imagine a wall, big, or imagine a plain, like a savanna, and then imagine like an outcropping of rocks with a little cave. To me, it seems much better, especially if the cave is higher, to be just inside the cave. So your back is protected.
Yeah.
And you can see this area,
right.
A large area.
Okay, so that makes sense. So just to go over it again, the commanding position is the spot in a room that's the farthest from the door and not in direct line with it. So farthest from the door, so the commanding position would be diagonal to the door, so not in a straight line from it. You should have a clear line of sight to the door. The commanding position is where you want to spend most of your time in that room. So if it's a bed, you have your bed off to the side. If it's a desk, you have your desk off to the side. So that's the commanding position. A bagua, now remember we're going back to the 3 essential principles, the commanding position, the bagua, and the 5 elements. So the bagua is an energy map that's you superimpose on a diagram of your floor space. The Chinese word bagua translates to mean 8 areas. And there are 8 areas, but there's actually an extra one. So there's actually 9 areas, but there's 8 areas that are identified.
Like equidistant segments of the...
So each of these areas has a corresponding shape, color, season, number, and earthly elements like water, fire, those sorts of things. And at the center of the Bagua, the center of all those 8 spaces, is the 9th area, and that represents you, your overall wellness. But laying out that map is controversial, as all things end up being controversial in one way or another. So there's several...
People don't agree with it?
Yeah, there's several Feng Shui schools of thought. All of them use Baguas when analyzing your home, but some apply the Bagua in different ways. The Western and Black sect schools usually lay out the Bagua so that the knowledge, career, and helpful people areas align with the front door of the home. And the flying stars and other classical schools might orient the Bagua based on the energy of the year or a compass, and I've tried both ways, and it's easiest for me just to do the Western method. So in this way, imagine you're standing in the doorway to your house, and let's call that south just because maps usually south is on the bottom, just to make this easy. So you're standing in the doorway. Let's say your doorway is on the south. That spot on the Bagua is your career area. The corner of your house to your far left, or in this imaginary map, the southwest, is knowledge. Traveling clockwise around the perimeter of your home, the west spot is family. The far right corner or northwest is wealth. Directly north is fame. So directly across from the front door, across the entire house, is fame. The northwest corner is partnership, or some say love. Then directly east is children. And the southeast corner, directly to the right of the front door, is helpful people.
What does that mean?
I'm not really sure. Maybe just people that are positive in your life. So now you're back at the front door. In the center of the house, in the center of all these 8 areas, is Tai Chi, or your overall wellness. And the idea is to change an area to an energy that better resonates with its corresponding purpose. For instance, in our house on Avenue H, our dining room would have been in the family area of the Bagua, which is wonderful. That matches. And if I was following this method, which I was not at that time, and it just so happens that this is the way it worked out. If I was following this method, the table would be to one side or the other. And it was. When you entered the dining room from the living room, so the front door through the living room, there's the dining room. The table was to the left, which would be also the family area of that room. The light blocking shade on that big window was a pattern of greens, blues, and teals. And it just so happens
which is like the season.
Yes. So in the family area, which also means new beginnings, the colors are greens, blues, and teal. The table was rectangular, and the shape for the family area is a column or rectangular. And we usually had 4 chairs around the table, and then we put more out on Sundays because so many more people came up, and the number is 4 for that area. I didn't have any yang wood, which is the element for the family area, but there was a lot of natural wood in that area. I also had a desk in that room, and that desk was on the opposite side of the room. So that would match, that would matter.
It's interesting because imagine now it didn't match, or it matched worse, and you got a different effect. I mean, let's say you everything happened differently because it was a different shaped room, or everything was arranged differently. There's no way of knowing how things would have gone differently, so you can't attribute an effect to the Feng Shui or the aesthetics of the room. But
as I said earlier, in my first apartment, I would change my furniture around frequently. And when I changed it around, I noticed an effect. Now, was that effect me being influenced by having different energy around me or different surroundings?
Also consider if at the times when you reorganized, that is indicative of some behavioral change.
Very, very true. That is a good point. Okay, so tips to Feng Shui your home. And these tips are really, really basic tips. And I think that probably, even if you're not into Feng Shui, it probably really matters. It's like things like decorate with plants, and keep your bed, desk, or stove in the commanding position, furthest from the door, but not in direct alignment with it. Balance the colors. I mean, these are decorating hints and ideas. But what I'm interested in knowing is, what do you think about if there's really energy that's going to affect you, that, can you really change the energy flow in a room by changing furniture around? Is from a scientific point of view.
I mean, so again, me and energy.
Yeah.
Many colloquial uses of the word energy. It's such a, I mean, I don't even know what they're talking about. I don't even know from a metaphysical perspective what they're talking about. So two things. One, as far as I understand Taoism, the fundamental idea that, like I was saying, the practical kind of philosophy behind it is there is a sort of way things can go that is just seamless, and like a well-oiled machine, things just
flow,
go well. Occasionally, when you're doing things, you feel that. And Western culture call it flow, usually. Things just go really well, and people seek that really, really hard. And that's something practical. It has no explanation necessarily. It's just, things are just going really well. So you try to replicate the circumstance and your behaviors to induce that, I think what usually happens is people have they notice something, they have a practical philosophy, whatever. And then I've described this before, that it does this like up and down in abstraction, where it gets more abstract, it loses information, and then it becomes more concrete, it gains information, but the model behind it itself, it still retains maybe that the information that it allows it to be a useful model, but it's actually, if you use it as it evolves, you'll be making worse predictions. So like, for instance, astrology, which we haven't done a thing on astrology. I don't really know much about it, but I'm operating right now on an assumption that it's not true. I mean, and if you assume it's not true, then you can see there is a practical philosophy behind astrology. Look at the stars. They'll tell you something about what's happening. And it's true. You can look at the stars and determine where you are, what time of year it is, necessarily what time of day it is, and very precisely if you know what you're doing.
But can it tell you if you're going to fall in love in the next 3 months?
So the practical philosophy as a model gained things, and that's what we call astrology. It's gained things like, here's a constellation, and if it's here, it means you are going to get money or whatever. And so, like this, aesthetics combined with flow philosophy, and it's true, there are certain inevitably, there's certain configurations of your space that allows you to flow better. I mean, flow in the sense of psychological flow. But and this is why there's probably contention about the energy map. Is it so specific that you need wood from a particular tree here, and you can't place your desk here, whatever? It's probably more like your state of flow is more correlated with who you are as a person than the configuration. And so I think necessarily the most flowy way you can assemble your space is by paying really close attention to how you feel when you're doing it. Like with all other energies, people feel something, they say it's a thing, and then now because it's a thing, meaning more concrete, it has other attributes. Like it can literally be in a spot. The energy is not just something you're feeling, it's something physically located in space. So like an energy map, So I think that without even looking at like woo versus not woo or whatever. If you're in a space and you feel something and you consistently feel it, meaning different circumstances are going on, you go to that space and you still feel the same thing. It doesn't even matter if there's quote unquote energy or whatever.
Right. Okay, I get you.
The effect is the same. One thing is if you are convincing yourself that this configuration will bring such and such effect, placebo effect or anything else,
law of attraction,
the law of attraction, or maybe the laws of Feng Shui are correct. It doesn't matter if you get the effect and consistently get the effect, then you're good. The energy is there, or whatever you want to call it.
Okay, so here's my suggestion that we choose one.
You want to do it?
Yeah. Let's say if we do it for this room, so there's the front door and you come in, so I am actually sitting in.
I mean, it would never work in this house.
Well, you square off your corners if it's irregularly shaped.
Yeah, but it would literally never work. The first thing you see when you come in the door is my bedroom.
No, the first thing you see is the TV. Look at straight in line.
But
we're off to the side. These are the commanding positions.
Okay,
we're
so
off
wait,
to the
what's
side.
the thing across from the door supposed to be?
I don't know, but we're in the commanding position, which is off to the side.
I suppose you're right. Yeah, we are in the commanding position.
So in this room, let's choose an area. So there's wealth, family, knowledge, career, helpful people, children, which would be that doorway. That's unfortunate. Partnership.
Oh, yeah,
and
we're
fame.
talking about, yeah.
So which area do we want to take? And then I'll tell you what we need to put in it to make it.
Knowledge.
Knowledge. So that's this area right here. Unfortunately, this area is where we have the haunted doll and children's books and abandoned embroidery project. Okay, so I'm going to look up knowledge, health, helpful people, children, knowledge. Okay, knowledge, self-cultivation, and skillfulness. Well, kids' books and embroidery.
The kids' book should be over there, though.
The shape is flat and square.
Kinda. I mean, it has
got a
multiple
square,
flat surfaces, and it's a square thing.
Color's dark blue. Should we paint that blue?
Oh, no. I like it that way.
Okay.
It's gold.
What should we do? Maybe, I don't know. What should we do?
You could put up a picture of those things, right? Is there anything that says you can't do that? You can't just put up a picture to simulate what they're saying?
I don't know. And the number is 8. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4 shelves.
You know what I mean, though?
Yeah.
If, like, for the season, you just put up a picture of that season, the tree, the wood or whatever, you put up the yang wood as a picture. I mean, I'm not talking about actually building anything.
Yeah. I don't know.
There's nothing that says you can.
I don't know. I don't know enough about it, but I will find out. The element is earth. That's kind of like earth colored.
Gold? Gold's from the earth, right?
I don't think it means gold. I think it means like dirt.
It's
Oh God, anybody who knows Feng Shui, help us out here.
Wait, could you put a pile of dirt?
I don't know. I do
Wouldn't
not
that
know.
be just amplify the effect?
I don't know.
If you're going to
easier to do
maximize
fame, which would be right there. Fame is triangle and pointy. Okay, so if you remember in the house in Avenue H, above the kitchen window, which was in the fame position in that house, I made triangular shaped curtain thing across the window, and it was bright red.
You know what's so weird?
And it's triangle, red, and the element is fire.
This room, that room, and then the kitchen.
Yes, if that was the door, the door was right there.
It's in such a weirdly close shape and everything as that house.
If you swapped the house, if you just mirrored it.
Yeah, seriously.
It would be very much
this has to be over there.
Yeah.
The bathroom has to be over there, obviously.
Yeah, exactly. Swap it
Oh,
over.
yeah, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah. Shift it around a little bit. That's weird.
Yeah, that is weird. That was the first thing I noticed when we walked through here when it was listed for
So there's another thing to be said about associative stuff. I mean, associative as in two things that are similar. It's like, okay, if you have a situation A that's similar to a situation B, superficially, they'll also be deeply similar. So, like, the house is similar in shape to the other house, then there will be other similarities too. Like, for instance, if a mouse died under the floorboards here, a mouse had also died under the floorboards in the other house.
I don't like thinking about things like that because that hurts my brain.
Because you don't like mice dying?
No, I don't like thinking that
but it's important, because if in the past there was some, I don't know, magic Taoist sorcerer, and he had his building set up like that, family and friends and dirt and whatever, and he established this energy power grid through this space, then associatively, anytime you mimic that, there will be other effects that fold over.
Okay, I can see
and
that.
This is almost certainly not how the universe works, but but you can see, like, that's another thing, like, that's another way that the universe could work that would enable Feng Shui to work. It's weird because what people are doing is so a person is simulated by the universe they live in. Simulated meaning whatever it is, whether it's a mind-only universe or the physical reality we appear to be in or whatever, it is doing stuff and you arise out of that stuff that's being done. But you are simulating something, some part in you is simulating what you think is going on, or some combination of those things. And you, in the process of you simulating what you think is going on, there's certain tendencies, like people actually associate things that are similar more than they should. Like, if I thought that this space in the past that I witnessed had some sort of power, then when I see a space similar to it, I'll also think it has that power, even though it may not be true.
Now, also, and that is a very good point. So also in the Asian culture from which this sprang, Feng Shui sprang, those things may have already had those associations to them.
Yeah.
So that's important. Okay, I did find what the earth thing is. It says the qualities are grounded, self-care, and stable. The shape is flat and square. So I think that works very well because there are flat and square shelves on there. The colors are brown, orange, and yellow. So that's that. And the season is a transition between the seasons. The areas are for health, knowledge, and partnerships. Okay, so what do we have to add there to make that fit that knowledge thing? I think that we should put
a pile of dirt.
No, we don't, because I think that the brown of those shelves satisfy that.
Well, what's the season?
It is no particular season. It's a transition between seasons.
Oh.
Now, if you say the first...
A growing plant. It's transition between seasons.
No.
How about a growing plant plus fall leaves?
We need something dark.
We should have a plant there.
No, we should not.
Because the water might destroy that thing?
Yeah, we need dark blue.
Okay.
And the transition between the seasons would be...
And how is this supposed to help us?
It's supposed to give us knowledge.
Do you notice...
Self-cultivation and skillfulness.
The analogy here between that and tarot cards? There are simple qualities that are associated with these individual units. So like, a section of your room, a unit, that has particular qualities that have to be met. So like, the analogy with the card is you have a particular card and there are particular qualities that go along with the card.
I know what you're saying, but I think it's more like almost like a dog whistle. So if you take this area of your room and you very intentionally put things in it, and the whole time you're doing that, you're thinking this represents this is going to inspire that. Every time you look in that area, you will be thinking of those things. And so going back to the law of attraction, because you're thinking about it and you're focused on it, you will attract those things, not necessarily because of anything paranormal, but because that's what you're thinking of. So we need something blue in that area. We probably don't need the kids' books in that area.
So if that's the general principle, then couldn't you just do that? Like, so for instance, it's like the scrying thing. Every time you look at this thing, whatever it is, you think a particular thing. So like you could just put a blue pot there or whatever you want. And then you deliberately do this where you look at it and you think,
yes,
this is my knowledge.
I think that's one of the reasons why there's this trend of a lot of people putting signs up in their house that say things like, I love my family.
Oh, yeah.
Or gather.
So what usually happens is people put things, especially things that are supposed to be aesthetically pleasing, up, and your brain is not built for that. It is built to filter almost everything out.
Yes.
So you filter that out. It's like, what's your house smell like? I don't know. It literally is, it's not even consciously available. I cannot smell what this or any building I spend significant time in smells like. Cannot do it.
Yeah. But when you walk into someone else's house, immediately.
And they don't sense it.
No.
That's why I think you have to deliberately, like, drill it. You go to this thing at the same time you have a habit of going and saying, this is my knowledge pot. It's blue because knowledge and, whatever.
Okay, so I'm not going to do that because that is almost, that's like worship of the knowledge pot.
Yeah.
I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
Okay, well.
But that's what it would take. To get a real effect, I think.
I'm going to make this the knowledge corner.
Uh-huh.
And then we will assess. Well, no, we can't assess that. How can we assess whether we got more knowledge?
Like I said, you can't look.
No, it's got to be something
counterfactual.
Else. It's got to be something that we can measure.
Yeah, but how would you?
Well, if
you
it's
put it up.
Okay, if it's wealth.
So it's like this. You look at metrics of your wealth or your knowledge or whatever in a period before you change the corner of your room. And then you change it, and then you look at the metrics afterwards.
Okay,
and there has to be an improvement.
We're going to go with wealth. So wealth would be that corner of the room where the weird gold lamp is.
Uh-huh.
So let me look at that wealth. Wealth, abundance, and prosperity. Columnar?
Columnar?
Columnar? Is that how you say it?
I think it's columnar.
Okay, columns and rectangular. There is a rectangular table, or it is a rectangular
You see,
table.
that's associative.
Purple. So we need something purple there. Spring, the number 5, and wood.
The numerology is also one of those things. Super tiny correlations that probably don't exist, and you attach them to a...
Okay, so the wood is greens and blues, and that is kind of greenish bluish.
I'd say that's yellow. It's brown.
No, the table.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Greenish blue.
Are you colorblind? And green, and there's a green plant there. The season is spring, and it's for wealth.
Consider this.
So we have to add...
Christmas. What does Christmas mean to you? Family, togetherness, the superceptual feeling of Christmas, cookies, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But those feelings, those associations from your past, like with memories... Those are reinforced every year.
Yes.
On Christmas.
Yes.
I think it's not just enough to make a change. It's like you bring a guest into your office. This is my knowledge corner. This is my knowledge pot. It's blue because, you know what I mean? You have to reinforce it.
Oh my goodness.
Or like, for instance, let's say you have a map on your wall and you have a pin in the map on a place. And when people come in, you point to the pin and say, this is where I'm going. Then you're reinforcing your intention every time you interact with, like we could say, yeah, okay, there's a supernatural force. It's called chi or ki or whatever. And this is how it works. And so we put up the knowledge pot and it's like collecting ki and spreading it. And,
is it ki?
Chi, ki, whatever. I think it's probably a phoneme that's between the two. But the more practical way to look at it, even no matter what you believe, because this is a real thing, is if you look at it and say, this is the thing I believe about this thing, you really will get an effect, probably. But I think it's like flow. You can attach a lot of different meanings to flow, but the basic reality of it is sometimes you feel whatever you're doing or whatever you're thinking goes really well and it feels good. It's even beyond feeling good. It's just flowing. That's the way it is, you know? And so the basic kind of principle behind, like, for instance, if you're gonna put a knowledge pot in the corner of your room, then the basic idea is not actually what you get out of it long term. It is the mere fact that you did it, you know?
Mm-hmm.
It's like...
And you associate it.
It's like, what do the Taoist monks practice? It's like a theatrical dancing...
Tai Chi.
Yeah, that must be. Martial arts form. The point isn't to be super killer and, you know, whatever. It's to have the perfect movement. Mm-hmm. It's to feel the flow when you do it, which is, it makes perfect sense why this philosophy would have this particular practice, because it's an excellent way to induce flow. But it's not about like, oh, after the fact, I'll be really deadly and I'll be able to kill people with my finger. It's about the practice of doing it. You put the knowledge pot in the corner of the room. It's like gardening. Why have I been gardening recently? It really does. It's not like I think, oh yeah, we're going to get a load of lentils and beans, whatever. It's the process of doing it.
Yes.
I think it's one of those things where it's like, okay, this is a strange concept. There's this idea of mine. It's like transcendence. So transcendence is a kind of loaded word. But what I mean by it is something that is transcended from whatever it was before is categorically different, to a really high degree, categorically different. You're saying, oh, I'm going to reorganize my room so that I get XYZ effects. The actual effect of considering flow and the way is something so completely different, but it looks the same. You have organized your room. That's the way. The way wasn't because now it is in this configuration that you're going to get these effects. The way, the Feng Shui is you have organized your room. There you go.
I think that the other part of it is that if you do it intentionally, that is already fine-tuning your thought process. So
from a more pragmatic perspective, if just in the process of doing it, you're setting new associations and you're solidifying your intentions and what you believe. If you have one room in your house that's just the room that sets a particular intention in your brain, and you put things in the room, you put like pictures or whatever, it's like a collage, you know. Every time you look at the collage, there's particular associations that are carefully crafting in your brain to produce every time. Then if you need it, you can open that up, or you can walk into the room and you get those effects. You really do get those effects because you spent time reorganizing your brain essentially to do that specifically, you know? Okay,
so our end result here is...
What is our end result? As usual, it's
we don't want to denigrate an ancient, traditional Asian practice. And I do think it has value. You know, a lot of things that have value are just... Actually, they just come down to tricking your own psyche. And so whatever works.
Like the what is it you usually say? The quintessential skill is dominant thought management.
Yeah.
If you can use your environment to control where your thoughts are, that will have a very real effect.
That was really good. Have you used Feng Shui in your home? I have. But not seriously. I mean, I just kind of dabbled in it. But I'm going to try and take a corner and do it. And we'll see what happens. I've included a link to a pretty basic article that's on the spruce about it in our show notes. Our contact information is also in there. You can email us, text us, or even call and leave a 3-minute voicemail. And as always, if you have a story you want to tell, send it to us. Please share, subscribe, and leave a review wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks for listening, and never be so terrified you can't run.